welcome to the Purpose Over Profit podcast with Darren and Chris, where each week we discuss what it takes to live a life of purpose and profit and explore the lives of people trying to achieve just that. Welcome back to the Purpose Over Profit podcast. As always, I've got Chris with me this week. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. I've got my daughter in the background. She is self-isolating because there's been a COVID issue with her class, actually. So if you hear any funny noises in the background, it's my daughter either squealing because she's watching something and being very happy.
Hopefully she's okay. My mentee got sent home as self-isolating as well, along with his class.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I guess it's what happens when kids are back at school now. So, so this week is going to be a bit of a change for us, isn't it? So we've no guests lined up. We are going to do a bit of a review of the last 12 weeks. Right on cue. We're going to do a review of the last 12 weeks and just chat a little bit about kind of our key takeaways from each of those interviews. We've had some amazing conversations, and yeah, we're also going to be looking forward as well. So we'll be looking back, reflecting a bit of what we've taken away, but also looking forward to say, what can you expect over the coming weeks and months from the podcast? But yeah, looking forward to getting into it. And it's been good even just reflecting and going through that process, Chris, about getting the podcast off the ground, organising the first few interviews, and yeah, I suppose all the great conversations we've had over the last few months.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. It's funny to reflect on stuff as well. So we're going to do this every 12 episodes. We're going to pause and look back on it. So this is like the 13th episode. So my lucky number is 13, by the way, as well. So it's a bit of an unusual one. Yeah. So it's nice to do it on 13, but it's good to pause and reflect on stuff and then look to the future. So it means that anyone who doesn't want to listen to each episode, they can get a quick highlights reel here and then pick which one they want as well.
Yeah, it's almost like the lazy options guide. Obviously, you'll get all the benefit from listening to full every episode, Chris. But yeah, if you want to have a lazy recap, then yeah, hopefully this will be of use to you.
100%, yeah.
Good stuff. So let's get right into it then. So our first episode was ourselves. And obviously there's a load of work getting into like getting the podcast off the ground and getting that first episode recorded, I guess. But yeah, what was your take on it? Have you reflected back? Have you listened to it back?
Strangely, I have, yeah, and it's actually quite funny to listen back to your own voice as well. You realise how, one, we were both quite nervous, I think, as well, because it was the first podcast. So, and that's good to reflect as well, but actually how honest we were about our situation, our redundancies as well, and the journeys we were both on, and how they were kind of, I was probably slightly ahead of you because I'd taken that redundancy early, and around the path I was on with the business as well, and then the visions we were both sharing as well. And it was really interesting as well. Even just I was laughing because when I was listening to it back, I was talking about the routine I had, and that routine I had in the morning is completely different from what I've got just now. I still do journaling, but I'm not as regimented. I leave a bit of space to have a bit of fun with what I want to do, and that came from the conversations we've had about having that routine and sometimes not having it so fixed. Whereas some of our guests, which we'll go into, have it quite fixed as well.
Yeah, and there's certainly something for me. Like I think, like you say, in terms of the conversations that we had since then, I think it's definitely is what I expected it to do, basically, which is challenge my thinking a little bit about things, not in a hugely fundamental way, but certainly around some routines, some things to maybe try. So, we had Kirsty, who will speak about from a meditation point of view. We had Farah from a networking and some things changing within my kind of business interaction and networking space there as well. So, yeah, I suppose it's what I expected it to do. In terms of the original episode, it's been that long ago since I listened to it back, Chris, so I couldn't even tell you what I said. But what I do remember is, I guess, our vision for the podcast, talking about purpose. Yeah. And this idea that purpose over profit is about, yes, you can make money in any field, but once you've paid the bills and covered your kind of basic costs, I guess being able to live a life and doing some vocation that you're really passionate about is going to make you more money. It's going to make you, more fulfilled in terms of your ambition in life. And it's been great to just chat to people who are in that space and doing that, which has inspired me more to challenge maybe where I want to go in, the next 5-10 years, and the people that I want to impact within their lives as well. So, yeah, I think all in all, it was good to just get the podcast up and running. I think there probably were a bit of nerves and almost just anxiety about just getting it done from my end.
In fact, that's it. We both mentioned that on the podcast about the anxiety we both had. We even talked about the anxiety around leaving our jobs and the plan, how we both came to that mindset of wanting to have our own business and be in control of our own future as well, which is so important. And when you listen to the other podcasts as well, you realise that people want that as well. They want to be in control. They don't want permission to go and take a holiday. They want to have permission, give themselves permission to take a holiday instead of asking somebody else. So I think that's been fantastic for us both to look at. And probably the highlight for me, I picked out as well that you had a very squeaky chair in the first episode, which you seem to have sorted now. There you go, no squeak.
I don't know, to be honest with you. I think the squeak could be back, but I did put about half a tin of WD-40 on it last week. So we will see. Maybe that's done the trick. But yeah, so then thinking forward, we wanted to get a great guest. Obviously, all the guests were great that we've had on, but we wanted to get someone on who, like, I suppose, kind of exemplified the nature of the podcast. And we got Dr. Ian McRitchie on for that first episode, which was great. Someone we obviously know well and came across through our work with MCR Pathways, which is a charity organisation that supports I guess underprivileged kids or kids potentially on the fringes of the care system and places a mentee or a mentor, within every mentee within the school system. So it's a collaboration between separate charity, the schools, councils, etc. all need to come together to basically help drive our young people that potentially haven't had the best start in life to help them go on to further education or a job after fourth year. No. So, and that's been such a fantastic charity, I guess. I know it's something we're both involved in as mentors, and it was great to have Ian on.
Yeah, no, it was. Ian was fantastic because he's got such a personality as well. So when you speak to somebody at that level, because he's a philanthropist as well, so he's out there helping a lot of people. He's made a lot of money. He's on the board for different companies as well. So he's a very high level businessman, but he's got such a good heart as well. And he talked around at the very start of MCR about how he worked in the care home sector. And was working in the care home sector, and basically what would happen with these children that came in the care homes is that because of budgets and because of constrictions that had been applied to them, they'd have to move them on, and sometimes the bin bags are getting packed up and then they get shifted on. And he just felt that was completely heartless to a point. He seen it being broken, and he wanted to try and do something right at the very start. And he said a great quote for it as well, where he's seen that education and outcomes dictate job choices, and then job choices dictate life chances. So that's why he decided to try and implement these mentors into the schools, so then they can actually work with these individuals and the children from a poorer background or a more struggling background, so they get every other opportunity that everyone else has. And I thought that was fantastic. He was just such a engaging, emotive, energetic speaker. And for podcast 2, which was the kind of official launch of having a guest on, it was tremendous.
Yeah, and there's zero ego about him as well, which is someone who's probably the most financially successful person I've probably spoke to in depth, and there's zero ego there. He was just so passionate and humble about where he'd come from, what he'd achieved, and I think I gave him the most underwhelming opening or introduction to the podcast as well. I remember it was like, yeah, this is Dr. Ian McRitchie, kind of glossed over all its success. That was probably nerves. But at the same time, you're right, because there was so much to him that you couldn't cover it in one podcast. We just covered a bit of MCR when actually could get into detail about his whole background. So there must have been nerves introducing the first guest at that level as well. Yeah, but yeah, I think he was a great person to have on, and yeah, it's great. I think on a personal level, it's great for us to be back in schools now. Obviously, I'm not this week, but back seeing our mentees, because it is such a fantastic charity as well. So what we'll do is we'll link in the show notes as well some of the how you can get involved with MCR Pathways as well as a charity, because it's such a fantastic charity. For such a minimal amount of effort, you can have such a massive impact over such a long period of time.
Yeah, and what's critical about that is he also mentioned, so you make an impact on the individual, so the school people you're mentoring, but he said the impact you have on yourself, the skills you learn as well, you learn how to become an active listener, you get empathy, you learn to grow as well. And he said in a business world, to have those skills is tremendous. So it's kind of free skills you get plus all the training. So I think just from the MCR support network and the amount of money, and Ian himself is like, he's a mentor as well, and he's been doing it since he started. So yeah, it's just a fantastic charity. And to kick that off, it just, like you say, set the scene. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Right. So on to Angela McKillop, episode 3. What did you take from that?
Do you know, it's so interesting when you take what Angela's doing and what Ian's doing. So Angela, obviously she talks around how she had a multi-pound business that just during the crash just disappeared, and then she had to reevaluate her situation. But she had so much confidence in herself and her husband Stephen that they basically took all of their negative experiences and turned it into a positive experience because of the confidence. And they knew that they'd never want to go and get a job because they knew they'd confidence in themselves to actually start their own business again. And she's had so many stuff. So she'd obviously been involved in a business, then that folded. Then she started a coaching business. And then she's moved on to another business, which she set up with her partner as well, which is fantastic. So I think there's so many aspects to it as well. And the fact that she's always pushing herself and she's got so much drive, and even the stuff around her sports as well. Like she's becoming really motivated around her. She's been doing photo shoots, hasn't she?
Yeah, I was going to say she might not thank us, but I think she's 41 now. I know she turned 40 recently, which you might not thank us for. It's all over our Instagram anyway. But right, okay. I think I don't think we got this, but I think she was very driven to kind of like get in our best shape. Fitness. So I think that's been credit to her.
Yeah, and what did you take? Because obviously there's so much to unpack. It's impossible to get it under an hour.
I think it's just mindset. I think the mindset from both her and Stephen, but I think going through that loss and what it does to your confidence and ego, it was quite a humbling experience. But there's two options. There's either you take that as a reason to never do that again, or you take that as an opportunity to learn and grow and do it different next time. And I think it's great to see her choose the latter of those and go on, because that's such an inspiring story. There's going to be so many businesses that have been challenged over the last year, went out of business, and it doesn't need to be a full stop. It doesn't mean it's not for you. There is opportunity. There's the adversity will always drive an opportunity to learn, grow, take something from it and do it better next time, which is exactly the story her and Stephen are basically writing right now.
Yeah, and I actually loved as well. It's funny when you talk about the business mindset and all this, and we've talked around other people about how, we can talk about Kyle later, about how there's no confidence in public speaking for kids. But when Angela spoke about her son, she was talking about how they're teaching him about profit and loss and teaching him about employing people and how he's starting to do his own little business. We would go around, he went to the shops and tried to negotiate for a chocolate bar. I can't remember exactly. But all about that, which is fantastic. And Angela was one of the people that kind of instilled into me around, she said that she's got a morning routine, but she'll leave a bit of time for a space for something that she enjoys. And that can be anything that can slot in and out instead of being so regimented. I thought that was really fantastic. So I think, again, it's that dedication, that passion. And just, again, she's all about having fun as well. So she's all, I mean, do you see it, Daz? I mean, you mentioned it in the podcast where she jumps out her husband when she's hiding behind something, films it and gets his reaction because she's all about fun. And then that fun then attracts people to the business. So instead of them having to advertise for people will come to them when there's jobs available, which is fantastic as well.
Yeah, and I suppose it's the opportunity being a business owner. It's like, bring yourself. Don't park who you are to start a business. Sometimes, and I certainly felt being an employee, you did have to park part of your personality. You know, it's a professional atmosphere and there's a certain way we do things about here. Well, there's a certain thing that I like to live, and she's bringing that into her business and instilling that as to there's a way of doing things here, but it's be yourself, have fun, work hard, and like ultimately buy into the vision of the company. So it's great to see her bringing that individuality into the business. And I think that's something that most business owners should be thinking about. How can they bring more of themselves into the business? Yeah,
and she also, I guess one of the critical things I took away from the conversation as well, which is then we've mentioned in other podcasts, is she said that basically, is it purpose over profit? But again, if you don't have profit in your business, then basically your business is just a hobby. So you need to have profit to sustain that business model. And Ian McRitchie talked about that as well. about you need that profit to give you the opportunity and the platform to go and do things as well. So it's been a really interesting conversation with that.
Yeah, Angela she was the first one that kind of challenged that a bit and went, "Do you know what? I think they're 50-50, I think was her answer. And whilst I don't quite agree, I get the sentiment around the, like, once you've paid enough to cover the bills, you should be focusing on where your passion should go and how you can cover your bills from that passion. Because if you're just paying bills to live for 2 days at the weekend, you're kind of sacrificing 5 for 2. It doesn't work.
Yeah, you're right.
Doesn't make sense to me.
You're not living, are you? You're not living the life you want to.
Cool. So we took a bit of change of pace into the next episode. We had Kirsty Rayner on, who is a transformational coach. She's a mindset expert. She's a former yogi as well. I think she has she set up a flower business during the pandemic as well. Just got her fingers in she's a social media influencer. So she's got this 16,000 following on Instagram. And yeah, it was great to hear a bit about her journey, which feels like from the outside and through the conversation was she's just navigated. She's listened to herself throughout. So mindset, self-care, meditation, yoga, or being a yogi, doing yoga has brought that meditation into her. And she's ended up kind of allowing that meditation is born out of, right, what direction do I need to go in? Where do I want to go now? It's not been this grand plan of, right, 10 years, I'm going to be X. It's like, what I want to be doing right now, what would fulfill me right now? Okay, I'm going to go and do that direction. So I'm going to sack it, my job in London, and I'm going to go to Hawaii to become a yogi. And then I know she's gone through some challenges with her health. And then she's went, right, I'm going to navigate in here. So I know she works with a lot of corporates from a mindset point of view and well-being and self-care. And she's also a fantastic transformational coach as well. So she's kind of just naturally going what feels right for her at the time. So for me, the main thing is I talk about planning a lot. I talk about goals. If you don't know where you're going, then how are you going to end up getting there?
Yep.
But I think Kirsty felt like it was a lot, she knows the importance of goals, but I think she just held it a lot lighter. And it was like, she took time to understand how she's feeling right now, checking in with herself regularly through meditation and going and steering her ship where feels right now, which
I think you're right.
It's just a great perspective.
Yeah, there was a certain energy and flow about her where it just felt, wherever that felt natural, she went with that movement. You're right, because I mean, we talked around how she had this advertising job in London. Like you say, she uprooted and went to Hawaii, a completely life-changing experience for her. But she's got a mindset of where she said that you can achieve anything you want just if you put your mind to it. And she lives and breathes that every day, which is fantastic as well. And she just showed us that, and you're right, it was a very different pace because you know her quite well. The first time I'd spoke to her, but straight away there was this connection you find, which you just, in fact, everyone we spoke to, it's all very like-minded individuals, but there's a different energy about them as well. And she's got that energy around helping people. And she even mentions something in the podcast, which I never even considered, where she talks about how women's energy levels and their mindset can be very different at certain times during the month because they're going through a cycle of sorts. So it's not right for them to make certain decisions when they're going through that cycle. So you've got to appreciate that as well. So like those kind of things you never consider as a business owner as well. So if you're going to work with a woman who's a business owner and there's certain things that are going on and they're not in the right mindset, then you shouldn't push it. So I think there's a lot there as well, which you need to unpack. And I think she was fantastic. And she spoke around, just because you mentioned the flower business, which I now remember, about employing her mum as a last minute support for Valentine's Day because the business just exploded. It was so busy and she had to bring her mum in. I thought that was fantastic. So she was lovely, Darren. Loved it.
Yeah. And we never delved too much into that talk of women's cycle for obvious reasons. Me and Chris, it's not our expert subject, but yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I was going to say something that we can't remember whether we covered or not, but she's very provocative in terms of some of the messages that she'll put out there. Like she's very open to challenging the norm, particularly in terms of female empowerment. And like I think if you're a female listener and I guess you're interested to understand more about mindset or meditation or just looking after yourself, I'd go and follow her on Instagram at Kirsty Rayner because she talks about some of the subjects she talks about are the stuff that's taboo, and you're not going to be speaking about with your mates. You're not going to be speaking about with your family because it's the type of stuff that isn't spoken about. So she kind of likes to air some of those conversations and like get into a discussion about it. And it's okay to telling you it's okay to have that conversation as well. So I thought that was fantastic.
No, you're right. And just to finish off that, actually, you're totally right, because she mentioned even about, again, the routine. She mentioned that the people that are out there living their best life and showing their routine every morning on Instagram, what they're doing, sometimes it's not their true self. They're doing that for show because they are an influencer. I mean, she said, well, do you know what? I'll get up when I want to get up. I got up when I feel ready to get up. And I thought, wow. So again, it's a bit of a contrast from other people. So it's brilliant as well.
Yeah, she loves a slow morning, I think. Cool. So next up, episode 5 was Chris Stewart, my old mucker from the corporate world. Well, we both knew Chris. I actually employed Chris, and I forgot. I never mentioned it. He reminded me on the podcast episode. But yeah, what did you take from that?
I took from it that he is a very clever guy, to be fair, because he's got so many ideas. Where we even spoke around how a while ago he wrote a children's book, and he was like, "Oh, that's right, I forgot about that. Yeah, it's been doing not bad." But then he started a business during COVID.
He's never forgotten about that.
He's never forgotten it. But yeah, even just around his different mindset around different business ventures. So even during the pandemic, so he opened up a play cafe as well for children. It's a different experience, fantastic idea. But during COVID, obviously, I had to shut down. But during COVID, he then started to create a different business where he's seen an opportunity called Rate My Cleaner. Is that right, Darren?
Yeah.
Rate My Cleaner. And then even during that period while they're still shut, he's got another part of the building which isn't used that he's now created or converted into a takeaway for a different clientele, which is fantastic. So I took from it that he's always got ideas, he's always got a plan in place, and he gives a great quote around how you need to burn your boats. And I remember that, and I started laughing at that. I'd never heard that before, but if you don't burn your boats, then you always have an escape plan. So he talks about if you get to an island and your boats are there, you can always escape. So it's the same with your job. So if you want to make a big jump, but you think you're in a job, I'm quite cozy here, I've got money coming in every month, I know what's happening, you'll never be fully dedicated. So he's made that jump. So that was some of it. I mean, what did you take from it yourself, Darren?
Yeah, I think Chris has never been short of ideas, having worked with him in the corporate world. And I think I certainly saw it can sometimes, especially with a big corporate, it can kind of stifle the creativity out of you because there's so many, it's like a big oil tanker to try and turn it. You know, I think Chris loves being the wee speedboat that you can just turn on a sixpence and head in whatever direction he wants. And yeah, like for me, this is, you know, he took redundancy alongside me last year, and there's two ways that I see. I hear people, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but there's two approaches that you can have from a perspective, and it's I was made redundant or I took redundancy. And the subtle difference is one's happened to me and it's a victim mindset, and one's an empowering thought that I've chosen. Yeah, now it was a voluntary redundancy. Yeah. So ultimately you have to put your hand up. No one's getting made to take it. Well, within reason, but I guess it's all about how you frame it. And Chris definitely comes from that latter category. I am choosing this path. This is something I want, which very similar to myself. But it's the creativity, I think, he doesn't switch off. I don't like, we joke a little bit sometimes that he's like Del Boy Trotter. It's like this time next year. And he's always got business ideas. So he's never, ever short of ideas. But you're talking about someone who has a family. He's got 3 kids. He runs a business on the side that was shut down during the pandemic, and then created at least 2 new businesses. Yep. If not 3, because he done some takeout delivery as well. So he repurposed the original one. You know, in the space of a few months after taking redundancy, the guy has got so much energy and, you know, positivity. It's confidence in himself. He just backs himself that things are going to work out, and he's okay to fail. He's okay to try stuff and it doesn't work. So you're
right. That's that speedboat bit you mentioned before. He said fail fast, wasn't it? I'm sure he said something like that. So you're completely right, Darren. Yeah. He's
definitely someone that I think if I was listening to that and I was working in a job and I wasn't happy or I felt stifled, I like go and have a listen to that episode. This is a guy that's just got so much energy and has just went out there and just done it. And the world hasn't fallen in. You know, nobody's died, you know, as a process of him taking redundancy and going and trying some stuff. And he's taking learnings from everything that he's doing. So yeah, it's just such an inspiring story of listen, go out there with a can-do attitude and you'll be amazed at what you can do.
Yeah, and there's also, again, there's no arrogance about him. So he sounds like, you mentioned the Del Boyness, but that's a fun element to him. And he mentioned, I mean, right at the end, he mentioned the old kind of granny story, which I loved as well, about how they were doing deliveries and it was an afternoon tea or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but the person who was delivering it from his company chapped the door and this old lady answered and she was, "Oh, is that for me?" And he went, "Oh, wait a minute." And then the next door neighbour popped her head down and said, "No, that's actually for me." So then the delivery person gave it to the neighbour next door and left. So when they told the story to Chris was like, "What about the lady?" And he went, "Oh, no, we just moved on." So then Chris went out his way the next day, the day after, to give this bespoke kind of lovely afternoon tea lunch thing and dropped it off to the lady. She opened the door and she was delighted. It was her birthday from memory and her son was coming around, her grandson was coming around to celebrate. And she was so delighted. And Chris said that buzz and that energy was better than anything. Better than money benefit, better than anything he's ever done, I'm sure.
Yeah, but he was able to create it. That's that. Yeah. The ability to do that in the corporate world is I'm not saying it's impossible. It's a lot more difficult to be able to get that reach to a customer level and have that a lot of impact. But and he's such a fun guy. I miss him around the office. It's often, you know, when you stop working. Obviously, we went on furlough well before we ended up taking redundancy anyway. But yeah, you miss that type of character and energy around the office as well. So it was great to have him on, even on a personal level, just to chew the fat a bit.
That's brilliant. Well, what I'll do is I'll introduce the next one then. So this was episode 6, which was Farah Hussein, who was absolutely fantastic. So she's it's hard to explain what Farah does. She's like a networker. She's a person that knows everyone. She's an influencer. She's a bit of a public speaker. She challenges beliefs. She is amazing.
Talk about provocative. You know, I mentioned Kirsty. Exactly, she's got, like, not that it's a numbers thing, but you know what, she's like 30,000 plus followers on Instagram. And every time I look at her, she doesn't take herself seriously, and she's provocative, particularly in terms of you know, I guess some of the cultural norms from her background. She's absolutely at the forefront of challenging some of that ideas, but also offering support.
Yeah. No, I think that's fantastic. And if we mentioned our TikTok videos, so we'll put this in the show notes as well. Her TikTok videos are phenomenal, and Darren mentioned that as well, where there's a great video where either she can go left or right, and it's when her kids leave the house, what's more important to her? Is it finding the right man that's going to fit in with the cultural beliefs? Is it making sure they're happy? And obviously she goes with making sure they're happy. So she picks key topical issues that are very provocative, can't say that word, which are a bit topical, and she puts it in a really humorous way, which is fantastic. So but yeah, no, like Darren hadn't fully met her before, and I've met her years ago, and I just got this energy about her and this vibe. And she even spoke around how when her husband became ill, she then had become the breadwinner, and before then she'd never been the breadwinner. She'd never put herself out there, and her journey to date is phenomenal. So but yeah, she was lovely. And what else did you take from it, Daz? Because I've got a few points here, but I don't know if you've got anything else you want to cover off with Farah.
I think just challenging, like, I guess potted history that I took from her, not knowing her prior to the call, was that she had quite a difficult background, but she was really happy. Her purpose was her family, and yes, she was happy. And then she'd had some difficulties with her husband, I believe, and from a health point of view, and she had to step up and become the breadwinner. And that was just, there wasn't should I do it? Could I do it? It was, I have to do it. Yeah. And she found herself into different sales jobs, found very successful at it, and is now working, I guess, in various fields. But I've worked with her since. I joined our networking platform.
Oh, brilliant.
As well. What a fantastic community. Lovely structure to it as well. It's not heavy sales. You know, it's all about building community and relationships, which she talks about in that episode over and over again. You know, networking can sometimes get a bit of a bad rep around it's someone walking into a room and chucking a business card at you. But I think, you know, if COVID's done anything positive, I do think the ability for us to network internationally now has just become the norm. And I know she's got a lot of international business owners that come on that, and people in careers as well. But I think we've had to work harder to understand each other and empathize, and we recognize there's been a shared difficulty we've all gone through, a bit like, Marines in training, where it's like a brotherhood. We all kind of get it. If you're a business owner, it's like we've been through COVID, we all get it. And I think she's created a fantastic community that just is born out of building relationships, and that's how networking should be done. So yeah, fantastic person, one of the nicest people. I think you've said this to me before I met her, but she genuinely is one of the nicest people I think I've ever met. So just got a lovely heart and willing to help, straight off the bat.
Yeah, and if you want to find good humour while getting educated on some good content, and definitely follow her on TikTok and Instagram. Definitely.
Yeah.
Cool. And then we're on to
Emily Black.
Yeah, episode 7.
I'm trying to think what episode 7, yeah.
Yeah, episode 7, yeah. It goes fast, actually. So Emily Black is somebody that I'd met through a different networking event. I knew her husband, actually, Derek. And Emily Black, when I heard her story, and I ended up giving her a bit of brand strategy consultancy advice, just because I loved the concept of what she was trying to do, and I felt that there was great opportunity there to help many people. So she's all about trying to improve the mental health and well-being in children, and that can be through clothing or any other kind of ideas that can actually help them. So when I first spoke to her, she had just released a clothing brand called Arlo and Jude, and that clothing brand is all about secret powers. It's all about creating these t-shirts which have different icons, if you like, on them, different messages that the children can wear. It makes them feel empowered. So whenever they go to nursery or school, they can wear these t-shirts, and then they can be brave or confident, and they know what that message is. So I think that was a really great person to have on, because we kind of we brought somebody on from a child perspective, and then we focused on business, and then bringing again back to kind of the family unit and also the stuff she does with adults. But Emily Black is tremendous, and we'll put again her details in the show notes, but that's episode 7. But Darren, that was the first time you met Emily, and I think you mentioned that after the podcast you're going to become a customer because you were that excited about the kind of opportunity that she brought forward.
Yeah, I love that. I think she's like the concept as well, just to build on what you've said. I think that you'll see a lot of t-shirts that will say like brave or confident, be you, own it, all this kind of stuff. But I think it was her concept was kind of trying to play at the creative mind of a child who likes to have secrets and play games. And so this was all those symbols. It was like each symbol stood for a particular letter, and it just meant they didn't need to be overt with telling everyone they were brave, because maybe they don't want to tell people they're brave, but they want to feel brave. So it was kind of giving them that. And I think she was talking about some new items where they were potentially, it was underneath nobody will be able to see me lifting up my I'm not lifting up my shirt, by the way, just at the sleeve, but like underneath the sleeve where it was written. So it's not even on the outside, and it's just almost a bit of a comfort blanket. She spoke about worry dolls as well. So
that's right.
From a coach, I absolutely get this, and I think I try, although it's difficult being a parent, I do try to have moments where I'm coach-like with my kids and let them speak and give them a space to basically tell me how they're feeling. I'd speak about sometimes being a coach, you're talking to a lamppost would be useful for anyone. All right. So true. Something that can't talk back to you, I guess. It doesn't need to be a lamppost, could be anything. But this concept of worry dolls that Emily's kind of created through Arlo and Jude, it's that kind of comfort blanket. It might be something that they do want to talk to, just to share their emotions and how they feel. And the idea is they can tell their worries to the worry doll before they go to sleep. And then they can have a sound night's sleep. But it's just a fantastic concept, because some of the worries might be about their parents. Some of the worries might be about how their parents have spoken to them, so they can't speak to their parents. So it doesn't matter how coach-like I try and be with my kids. There's a required distance sometimes for kids, because they don't want to upset you, and they might hold back some things because of their feelings for you, that conflict they've got. So yeah, I absolutely love that. And
just to build on that before you jump off, actually, because the worry doll she mentioned as well, that adults were buying them for themselves, which is fantastic during the pandemic, because we're feeling that stress. So that goes back to your coaching piece around people want to speak to somebody and then feel that the next day they've spoke to somebody and then they can move on from it. And I think that's really powerful, because it's really powerful that it's not just the children that are struggling. And just came to my mind, actually, she mentioned as well that the kids just now during the pandemic, for the younger kids, this is the only life they've known. Whereas we're lucky, we're adults, we've lived a life, so we know this is only a short period of our life, which is going to be taken up by a pandemic. But for them, this is everything to them. And she's very highly skilled and very highly creative because she's also a teacher. So she works in she's a primary teacher. So she says she sees it firsthand, the mental health and the struggle these kids are going under. But also she's got a creative background as well. And she's got a background of her family are entrepreneurs. So they've had shops and delis, and her brother's in Canada and all this kind of stuff. So it's that's the world she's known as being an entrepreneur. And I think that was fantastic. So there's so much there again that if you haven't listened to it, listen to it, because you'll definitely become a customer of Arlo and Jude, even if you don't have kids, because there's so much there to help you.
Yeah, and she's one that it's absolutely a side hustle, whereas I think everyone else we spoke to the point was a business owner. Holy, yeah. She's like, look, I think I'll always do teaching because I'm really passionate about it, but I'm also, so I think she works 3 days and she runs the business the rest of the time, and her husband helps out. And yeah, I think anyone that's thinking that, you know, you need to be one or the other, I think there's, you know, listen to that. She'll be able to tell you how that's possible, and such a fantastic concept.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, she's a parent, teacher, and wife as well, so she's juggling many stuff, and plus a business owner as well. So yeah, great episode to check out. Then episode 8, we had the very charismatic James Fleming, who is 100% a business owner. He is the business owner of the Power Within Training and Development. He's somebody I've worked with as well, and he's just like a magnet. He just pulls you to him. He's got so much energy, so much passion. He's got so much dedication, and he's got a great story as well where he talks about he's had all the money, he's had all the big jobs, he's worked in HR. He then became a training person. He's had all the fantastic life, but what was missing was he wanted something for himself. And he wanted something that was going to make a difference in people. He wanted to train the leaders of tomorrow today, and that's his kind of purpose as well. So his is so focused, it's so to the point. And if you want to find out about a really focused routine for every day and the weekend, James is it. He's got something that's so regimented. It is phenomenal. But yeah, Darren, what did you think of James's podcast?
Well, I wrote down wow.
Oh wow!
just as a kind of summary. But yeah, like absolute powerhouse. I think he's so determined, focused, disciplined. I think, you know, I wouldn't be want to like offer any excuses up to James why I couldn't do X, Y, and Z. Yeah. Put it that way. I think he's, you know, he'll be able to, you know, instill a confidence in you to stop making those excuses and go out and make it happen. But yeah, one thing that I remember from our conversation was I proposed to him, and you mentioned it there, around the idea that he had all the money. He had really successful jobs. He was working overseas, had worked his way up, but it did stifle him. It was stopping him going and doing what he actually wanted to do. So the profit and the money he was making had stopped him effectively living his purpose. Definitely. So this idea, whole like purpose over profit, he was like, yeah, like that's where I am now. But profit was actually standing in his way. And I've seen that. I see that every single day on a more, you know, a local level, where we all want to upgrade our lives to big mortgages, bigger cars, nicer holidays, all this sort of stuff. And that keeps us trapped in a place where we go, I have to work, I have to do this job. Yeah. But actually, if we just looked at all the shit that we maybe don't need, we might be able to focus more about what are the things that we're getting that are non-monetary. Where's the fulfillment, if it's through charity or some concept or idea or writing a book or whatever it is that we might want to do. I guess James recognized that, and he was earning, you know, big 6-figure salary at that time, and had to change that in order to grow a business from scratch. And yeah, just listen to his energy and focus. It's infectious.
Oh, 100%. And actually, you mentioned about obviously having the money, then starting this business again, and actually starting a business and coming home, which he hadn't done in ages. And he talked around during the pandemic, because all of his business was face-to-face. It was events, it was coaching. And basically, when the pandemic hit, all their business pretty much disappeared. So what we're going to do here? So he mentions in that point that they basically just got his big goal board, wiped it clean, he stood on the desk, and they came up with a plan. And since then, he's had a 300% increase in business because he's moved on to online. So he's created a new website, a digital training system. He worked on his brand with myself, and he's worked on a few other things. He's got a fantastic operator in there as well. So there's loads of parts to it. He's went all in, full in he decided to throw himself at it. And that has given him the opportunity now to kind of be more confident in himself, because he's saying, I teach people this, so I'm going to live this as well. I need to do this. And that's given him that confidence. And I think there was something else which I laughed at, which you picked up, that Darren, on the podcast. We talked about brushing your teeth. He talks about consistency. He said you don't brush your teeth once every month and hope it's going to be clean and keep all the bacteria. The more you do it, the better it becomes, and the better it is for you. So consistency is key. So if you're going to be doing something in your business, keep it consistent. And he's all about consistency. When you listen to his routine, I do beg you, if you want to find out a routine, listen to his, because you'll take away some key points.
Yeah, it's definitely not the large things that make the difference. Sometimes you think, oh, you need to do extraordinary things to be extraordinary or to have success, when actually it is like, and to that point, it is actually doing simple things. So brushing your teeth is a great analogy, because everyone can do it. Yeah, and it's the brushing them for a few minutes twice a day that actually makes the difference to you. You know, if you were brushing your teeth for 24 hours and that's all you did, you're not going to have an effect. So this quick, like this week or today, I'm going to hit the gym, and then you're never doing anything for the next month or whatever. Yeah, you can bring that analogy in anywhere in your life. If you're going to try Instagram or Facebook ads, and you've done it for a month and you think, well, I've not had success, so it mustn't work. Consistency is absolutely key.
Yeah, because he also spoke about giving back as well from memory, when I worked with him, we looked at basically all his giving back stuff, and I think he's got about 8 things he does. He's on different boards. He worked with MCR, he knows Dr. Amy Ritchie as well. So he's on so many different boards, and he is a massive advocate of giving back as well. He doesn't see it as just a kind of a bolt-on to his business. He sees it as an integral part of what he does. So again, it's all about that purpose aspect as well. So that's driven him forward to use the profit in his business, but to also make him sustainable and to constantly grow. And he wants more as well. He'll say to you that people who say they want to bring in $2,000 a month, that's brilliant. I'll say I want $80,000 a month. People who say they want a $60,000 a year income, I'll say I want $150,000 income. But he's doing that through his purpose and through his business, because he wants that. And he is infectious, Dan, and that's probably a great word to use, but he's so passionate as well.
Yeah. Cool. So moving on to episode 9, it's a bit of a change of pace. We had Greg Felon, who's a musician, just such a funny guy, to be honest. Yeah. I don't think he always intends to be, but a real dry sense of humor as well, which is right up my street.
So a musician,
I've met him before. Yeah,
a musician, marketer, isn't he? He's podcaster. Yeah, he's pretty out there, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, and it was such a great chat from understanding how he got into it. He basically stripped back all the like sexy stuff you might think about being a musician. It was like, this is a pain in the ass a lot of the time, but he loves the doing of it. And we spoke about some of the charity work that he did as well. So I think he worked with Maggie's, and through the pandemic he was basically delivering content, some of it which he had written and actually created years ago, and was repurposing during the emotion and the feeling of, I guess, the people, the public, I guess, at this time during lockdown. We can get through this is one of the ones which I think we featured on the episode.
Yeah.
And yeah, the main thing I took from it was having a passion and a purpose is a therapy. It's a therapy for him. So having that music was somewhere he could escape to himself when things were difficult, both in the past and during the pandemic. But he was also able to have a contribution to others during it as well. Yeah. And I love that concept of when you stop focusing on how difficult things are for you and you project, like, how can I help other people? Some of those feelings of the things that are difficult for you actually go away, because your energy and your focus is about how can you be of contribution to society? How can you help others? And he's doing that through, he's been doing that through the pandemic. No one's booking musicians just now, so there's a big part of his business that hasn't been supported. But yeah, I mean, he's a creative, so I know he works in marketing as well, and yeah, he's been supporting charities throughout the pandemic as well, which is fantastic.
And that's what he spoke around. He spoke around how the pandemic gave him an opportunity to kind of write some of his best ever shit, as he put it, which is fantastic as well. And it's interesting. So you got to peel away a certain layer of Greg as well. So whenever you see Greg on social media or you meet him in person, he's got this kind of musician, kind of rock star, kind of performance, if you like, and he does those social medias. He's quite a funny guy as well, but in this one he was quite real and genuine. He spoke around the difficulty, like you said, around how the industry actually is. He spoke around the pandemic about why he wrote the song, because he lost his sister, lost a partner from memory, and he's got that softer side, which I loved as well, because he even talks about, I was saying, well, you're always the performer, which is good. And he said, well, I'm actually an attention-seeking whore. I feel like that's what I call myself, which made me laugh. But then he talks about you need to find something you enjoy, because you need to do what you love, because darkness is the absence of light. That's what he mentioned. So if you don't have any light in your life, you're not going to enjoy it. So this is what he talks about, writing all these songs. So yeah, a phenomenal, again, charismatic, energetic chap for a completely different reason from James before. He's got this, and if you see some of his Instagram posts and all this, he has the kind of the blonde highlighted hair, and he's got the pouting look as well. He's got the shades on, but
sunglasses on,
yeah, he has a laugh, and he's really down to earth, and yeah, he's just a fun guy to be around.
Yeah, no, I love that chat. So on to episode 10, we had Amy Brown on. This was Amy. I'd worked with Amy previously. So she is a business growth strategist and time efficiency expert. So I've worked with her separately on my business to try and help me. But her MO, I guess, is about helping people build a business that without burnout. So it was a lot of people will go into business because it's maybe something that they love to do. So, a baker starts his own bakery, and actually through that process you end up resenting some of that work, because this is bringing some of the myth in there. You're the technician, so you're kind of doing the do, but who's managing, who's being the entrepreneur in that? So you always need to play these three roles. So she very much sees that as every business is a lifestyle business. What is the life you want to live? And then you're going into business. Don't just swap a job for another job. What is the type of business that you want to go into, and some of the efficiencies that you can make as a business owner, just to be a bit smarter about how you spend your time and structure stuff. So yeah, I've taken loads personally from working with her. But yeah, it was really interesting chat, just hearing about her journey, from working with top CEOs and being a, executive assistant, to then actually going out there and going, do you know what? I can just lift and shift a lot of this stuff and help business owners. And get paid a bit more money from it as well. So I think, she's got such a fantastic energy as well. And similar to what you mentioned with Kirsty, I think she takes every month she'll take a week off. So around the time of her period, or cycle, I guess, she'll just, I'm not putting business meetings in, because I recognize from a personal point of view, I'm not that productive, I'm not that efficient. So I'm going to look after myself at that time. So she works a business largely over 3 weeks as well, which that is absolutely listening to your energy levels and specifically your own body to say, how can I be most effective?
Yeah, because she mentioned about time blocking, which was massive. Time blocking, which you all should have an idea of. So we should block in their own time for certain projects, or certain, if you're a business owner, if it's going to be generating more business, if it's going to be focusing on your business, if it's going to be taking time off, it's going to be calls, anything, or doing your social media, whatever it is. But she says give yourself permission to take time off. So Friday afternoon, just block it off and say, no, I'm off that day because I'm going to be doing X, Y, and Z. But give yourself permission. But yeah, I loved her story as well. And that's the first time I met her. And I love this story around how she started a blog, because she was talking about the self-care and the struggle she'd be going through when she was a executive assistant. And this blog really took off. And then she started getting asked to go to talks. And then how that fear about talking about her mental health, but then she realised that people just wanted to talk about their issues as well. And then that trust helped her then start to realise that she could become this person that helped inspire people as well. And I think that was lovely, and she spoke about how at one point, one of her coaches said to her, you're not treating your business like a business. She was like, what do you mean? So when she does all this for her clients, she treats it like a business. So then she took time out of her business and looked at it and went, wait a minute, I'm not doing the right strategy here. I'm not doing this. She organised herself and looked at it from different lens, and she focused on it. But luckily enough, she mentioned this as well, that she wanted to start a business and then she got furloughed. And that gave her the best opportunity. She said her bosses were amazing. They said, go and take that time while you're furloughed and create your business and then generate it. And she went furloughed in March, I think it was, put her notice in July, and in September she left, and then her business has just grown and grown and grown because of what she does. And she was, again, so I keep on using the word charismatic, but they're so engaging, they're so like-minded, relatable, full of energy, personable, and there's so many words to describe her, but and just really nice and honest as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it was a great chat. And then moving on, we've got 2 to go. So 11, Kyle Murtagh. Have I pronounced that right, Chris? I know you spent a lot of time before. So Kyle's a public speaking expert that we were both aware of, and we'd spoken to previously. I know you'd spent a bit of time with him before I had met him. But yeah, he came on. He's a public speaking expert, and it's great to see. It was great for me because I'd seen a lot of his videos. He's very active on social media. You'll see him on LinkedIn a lot. You'll see him on Facebook as well. And so he'll be really open about tips that you can get to share, or was sharing his tips on becoming a better public speaker. But it was great just to have a bit more of a laid back chat back and forth with him around his journey. Like, how do you get into the world of public speaking? Yeah, he absolutely bombed his first talk. I think he said 2 words. The pub, I think, was his answer to some improv class. And then from there, he kind of felt like, I need to go up and do that, like a better job of that, and has kind of progressed from there. So he's been winning awards. I know he's won awards previously, won an award this year. And it was great, I think, to get some tips from him around where do people typically go wrong? How can they do things better as well? It's something that both of us, I think everyone wants to communicate better as well. It's a lifelong training, I guess, that all of us should be on to be able to communicate better. And I don't think you're ever the finished article. And he definitely subscribes to the concept that it's not, no one's a natural speaker. You might get the odd occasion, I think he said, but it's like the vast majority of us we have to work at it. And he's like, I'm in that space, and he's out there winning awards, and this is his business, and he helps other people communicate more effectively as well. So you absolutely can do it if you just choose to do it and work hard enough at it for long enough.
Yeah, I honestly thought Kyle was brilliant as well. And I love the fact that Kyle, like you say, around the word aspect, he pushes himself and he shows to his clients that he is pushing himself. And it's not to be showy to say I'm the best. It's to constantly evolve and actually show to not just his clients, but to himself that he can keep going. And he wants to become the world champion of public speaking at one point as well. So he's got a great vision out there as well, which is brilliant. And like you say, he's got his 5 tips from his books. He's got lots of videos, free videos out there you can watch around stuff as well. He's got some humorous stuff as well, which talks around how you can, how you relate to the camera, treat like a human being, how you can actually have a bit of fun with your audience as well, how you tell a story. And he's got different groups as well, which you can join. So groups can either be one-on-one, it can be groups where you can become part of his community group, where it's a monthly session. And it's all about giving you topics. So one just recently was around PowerPoint, how to create a PowerPoint and deliver it. And it gives you in bite-sized chunks. Really makes it simple for you to understand, and then even how to deliver it as well. So he educates you through that, and it's all through his learning. And just from memory, he spoke about being in school, and in school he never had this. He wasn't as confident. He kind of like we mentioned with Kirsty, he kind of followed his own energy, he fell into this and then just followed his own way and focused on it. And we spoke around in school how there isn't this kind of stuff taught, and it'd be really good if this kind of stuff was taught, and maybe he could become that person that teaches it, maybe part of MCR or whatever else. So there's great opportunity there about helping others. So, but yeah, no, I thought he was great, and he's a great public speaker. You'll see him on the YouTube video if you watch it. He's very animated, talks about using his hands, owning the space, standing up. He's got this, keeping your voice at different levels. So yeah, there's hundreds of tips you can pick up from him.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And again, we've said this word like charismatic and energy and stuff, which actually I think we've probably brought people on who we see are doing that, and we've spent time with them that have that energy. So there's probably no coincidence.
Yeah, they need to reflect the speakers. We're both charismatic and full of
energy.
We're
obviously massively charismatic, mate. Yeah. So cool. Listen, last but no means least, Caroline Clayton. So this was one that it occurred to me that I'm big in property. Well, I'm big on property. I won't say I'm big in property, but I've been property investing. It's enabled me to be purpose led in my life. So it's enabled me to quit the 9 to 5. So I started investing about 4 years ago, and Caroline was the person that, a sales trainer at an event, was the one that signed Jill and I up to training for her company at the time. And she's still doing that role just now. And it was an opportunity to kind of understand a little bit more about her background, and quite a lot of stuff that I wasn't even aware of about her start. And we went into her HR jobs and how she went from one job to the next. And it was like, I was chasing money. It was like, oh, they'll pay me more money. Great. Yeah. And I think property actually ended up becoming her why, because she lost her business during the 2008 crash. She thought she'd start her own recruitment business, and who was recruiting at that time? It's basically one of the first things, as well as marketing, to go when things are difficult for business. And she chose, at that point, it was like a line in the sand, right? I think they had maybe half a dozen buy-to-lets or something like that. And it was about like, how can we start to do this properly? So she got, and she got some education, got a mentor, and I guess has never really looked back. But that difficulty, that adversity, gave her the opportunity to create that purpose. And I think that's been her purpose since. I think she talks a lot about that, how, yes, it's about wealth creation, and she's quite bullish about making lots of money. Yeah. Still, that's still an ambition for her. But she does genuinely have purpose at the heart of it, to say, right, property is a fantastic vehicle in order to do that. You're out there being able to change the Daily Mail's opinion of landlords, slum landlords. Yeah. You're creating safe, clean, affordable homes for people. Land is finite, so there's no more space getting built in the world. So yeah, it was great to hear a bit more about her story, and similarly, just to continue to hear the same passion she's got for doing what she does, which is helping people create the life they want through property.
Well, that's it. And it was really interesting because we started off and you asked a question around, is it purpose over profit? And she was like, I don't really know. I know you're going to ask me this, but I'm not really sure. Yeah. And then as we went through it, it was obvious that it was purpose over profit. It totally was, because she spoke around a couple of examples where one was is it HMO that she has down south? Yeah, Liverpool, is it?
Liverpool.
Liverpool, from memory, that a charity rent off them or a part of it, and there was a new law, or whatever you call it, moved from
Article 4,
Article 4, moved from Article 4 to Article 3. Is that right?
Which moved it, I think that inadvertently, I think the charity had done something to move it from a C4 class to a C3 class, which is basically a residential. In layman's terms, C4 is like a house of multiple occupancy. That's what HMO stands for. So it can be basically a multiple dwelling. There's lots of different people in that house. They're not related. Whereas C3 is your typical residential house. You wouldn't let a normal house out to 6 different families.
And the reason why we explained that, because I needed that explained to me on the podcast as well, to be fair. But no, it was really good actually. So Caroline mentioned that, and because the charity had done that, then that meant that, because there was a new law coming in place from memory, that meant that you couldn't then move it back to Article 4 to make it an HMO. So that meant over a period of time, they'd lose a lot of money in that property. So the options were either kick the charity out, change it back over, or the other option was then to work with the charity and find a solution. So they found a solution where they looked at a 10-year lease, and at the end of that, the charity can then buy it off them. But Caroline won't make as much money on it. But at the same time, she didn't want to kick the charity out because it helps people in social care that are struggling for a house and really badly affected by family situations. So again, that's part of a purpose. And then she mentioned as well around, I've seen some of her social posts where she mentions about she hasn't put the rent up in some of the properties she's owned because there's been a tenant in there for the last 10 years or whatever. So she's decided not to do that. But when that tenant moved out, she put the monthly rent up as it should have been, because it's not all about chasing the money. It's all about looking after people. So I think there's a lot of purpose stuff. And as the conversation came out, she realised, shit, it is about purpose, yeah, which is fantastic as well.
Yeah. No, and I think she needed to probably find property to get that as well, and she needed to go through that adversity to get that. I think that became apparent through the conversation. But yeah, so it was great. It was great to be able to like chat to her and say thank you as well, which I did for helping kind of steer Jill and I on this path.
Yeah, and we all wore sunglasses in that episode as well. Which I remember.
We did, yeah. Which we've not mentioned yet. Obviously, Caroline had some eye surgery. I think just before, like I think the day before.
Yeah,
I was like, we could reschedule, and she's like, nah, let's just do it. She came on with sunglasses, so yeah, we all wore sunglasses. So there you go. But yeah, so that was us. 12 episodes. It was great. Some great conversations had, and yeah, it would also be good, Chris, I think, to look at what have we got coming up. Like, who have we got that our listeners can look forward to over the coming weeks and months?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got on just now, so we've got booked in. There's a guy called Josh Levin, which I actually was part of his brand book club through a guy called Finley. And Josh, he just resonated with me so well. He talks about culture and how culture is that needs to sit at the heart of every organisation. He talks about purpose. He talks about how behaviours impact it as well. So he's got this fantastic book called Great Mondays, which is a great title as well. Great Mondays. So I read that book and actually just connected with him straight away. Loved it. Listened to his audiobook twice actually, and then we did a brand book club. And he was fantastic. He just talks about the passion he's got, about the dedication. So he's going to be coming on. He's stateside as well. So we'll be a bit later. He'll be a bit earlier. And then a few others from my end that I know of quite well actually is Uche Loco. He's a charity lawyer as well. He does a lot of stuff with, he's also a dean as well at one of the universities. So he's all about helping the children understand, or helping kids understand there's a future there. He does a lot of stuff in the theatres. He does a lot of stuff with charity law. He does a lot of stuff with the lecturing as well. So he's phenomenal. And there's a chap called Paul Johnson coming on as well. He works in procurement. So he's all about demystifying the procurement process and how easy it can be, and actually how you don't need to actually focus so much on trying to win bids and tenders that you'll never win. And he helps you through that process as well. So that's just a couple coming from my end. And we've got a lady called Eloise as well, who is a copywriter, linguist as well. She is just, her passion, her dedication, her skill set is phenomenal. So I'm really looking forward to having her on. And what about your end, Az? Who have you got lined up?
So a few that we've got in the pipeline just now. So we've not spoken to anyone from network marketing space. So we've got Rachel Chan. She's at the top of what is sometimes described as pyramid selling. But I want to get into that and kind of get her take on network marketing. It's something that a lot of people will find that they've done, particularly over COVID. And yeah, like to hear about how she managed to get to the level of success she has. We've got Emma Dempsey, my own coach, actually, that I work with. She's going to be talking to us about the power of coaching, which I'm obviously hugely passionate about, but it'd be great to bring her on, hear a bit about her story and just how powerful coaching can really be. And yeah, we've got a young guy, one for the young team, Callum McLeod, who is a young entrepreneur who I met probably 3-4 years ago, and he talked to me about this concept about setting up a glamping business. So posh camping, for anyone that doesn't know what that is.
Wow.
And so he's ended up setting up a few sites, I think, in Scotland along the North Coast 500, and he ended up through that process recognizing a gap in the market around helping people basically put the planning applications in, drawings, all of that sort of stuff together, and managing that integration. And so now he helps people do that. And he's been over in Dubai since, I've had to watch his Instagram for the last year while he's been over in Dubai, living the entrepreneur lifestyle, but he's set up in Dubai now. So the company's gone international. He's now helping people set up out in that neck of the woods as well, which just phenomenal. Again, similarly, an inspirational story for anyone looking to, get into business and start a business.
Fantastic. And there was a sobriety lady as well.
Yeah, so we're going to be speaking to Kirsty Mulcahy. So she is a transformational coach, similar to myself, but she's big on self-care and love. She's into crystals and stuff I don't even understand. So we're going to be speaking to her soon. And she turned sober. I think she's well over 1,000 days now sober. Wow. But former party girl. She'll be talking about how she was a raver back in the 90s and into the noughties. And
Wow.
yeah, effectively the changes that sobriety's given her life, and she runs a sober community, Sober Buzz, and it's just a phenomenal story about how she's really changed her life. And I think we're going to get into talking a bit about sobriety, how it's something everyone should be thinking about, not maybe from a sense of I'm never drinking again, but if you've got to like 40 years old as us, and you've never had more than a couple of weeks break from drink, it's probably something that you maybe like, even just having one beer, you maybe need to be having a think about that, and like the long-term health implications as well as productivity and effectiveness, all of that stuff. So it'll be good to chat to her about that.
It's a really good mix of people and different backgrounds as well, especially the sobriety one. That's something that will be very different for people as well, because the concept of actually living your life without drinking for a lot of people is going to be quite hard. So, but that's a different perspective, which is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, and I should have said as well, we're also going to be trying and mixing it up. So we'll be doing some episodes like this where it's just me and Chris, and maybe it's a bit more informative. So we'll be trying to give hints, tips, advice. They might be slightly shorter episodes as well. So, but we'll still obviously be keeping the guest pipeline filled as well. So, as always, any questions, any recommendations, then reach out to us at the Pop Pod. Drop us a DM on social channels. It'll be great to hear from you.
Fantastic. That was a great episode. I'm looking forward to the next 12-week review as well.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be over in a flash. The next 12 weeks we'll be sitting doing the same.
Definitely. Cool. All right, Phil, thanks very much, Daz. We'll have a good day, and everyone, I'll see you soon.
Yeah. Bye for now.
As always, thank you so much for listening to the Pop Pod this week. If you'd like to leave a review or share the podcast with others, then that'd be awesome. You'll find us on Instagram at the Pop Pod, and on Facebook we have a community group called Purpose to Progress that anyone can join. And we'll be back every Monday with a new episode, but until then, stay on purpose, and we'll see you next week.